And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Tigers!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
The New Orleans Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers. Yeah.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
The playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Welcome to Chasing the Trophy Fantasy Football Podcast on the Dirty Boot Sports Network. We are back, guys. It is time. Fantasy football is right around the corner. And I'm your host, Derek Sanders, coming at you with my good friend, our producer, Clay Williams. And if you don't notice, we're down a man this year. Josh was bowing out of the pod. And I'm going to miss talking football with him, but I do wish him well. We are taking applications for anybody new that wants to get on here and talk. No, I'm just kidding, because we don't have enough time to have three opinions hardly anymore. I mean, y'all knew how long the pods were with three of us last year, and I'm just joking. But we will probably have some guests on throughout the year this year, and that way y'all don't have to just hear me yap the whole time. And especially Clay, because God bless him, he hears me talk more than probably anybody.
Hey,
and
I edit all them crossroad pods.
I know, man. I know, dude. I know. Hey, and don't worry, we're gonna get that ad in here, Clay. But so we're getting back, season 3, episode 1 coming at y'all. If y'all remember, like last year, this is going to be New Faces, New Places pod. But once again, I feel like we were definitely more consistent last year. We're going to kind of try to keep that going. We are going to try to get the episodes a little bit more compact this year. And Clay and I have come up with some ways to kind of cut down the time, and hopefully that's going to work. That way, I know, if y'all are like me, a lot of pods are like an hour long. It is just hard to find that much time, especially at one time. And then you get busy with life, and the next thing you know, the next pod's coming out, and it's like, well, I want to hear the new stuff. I don't want to go back and hear the old stuff, So we're going to try to get them a little bit shorter for y'all and see if we can keep that going. Just like always, we're still going to pray at the beginning of every pod, because without God, none of this is going to be possible, and we need to thank and be grateful for Him. So we're still going to keep doing that. And, like I like to preface at the last one, we love y'all as Christ does, no matter what. And there's nothing you can do about it. So I don't care what you say. I love you no matter what. And there's nothing you can do about me praying before this pod. So, you can suck it. Sorry. But jumping back on to New Places, New Faces. We are going to cover some free agent, rookie, and trade moves in this pod. And a little bit different from last year, because there were so many moves. We're going to do just quarterbacks and running backs in this pod. And so pretty much anything that's happened since the end of last year up to this point. We're recording this right before, by the time y'all hear this, it's going to be the beginning of August. And so anything that's happened up to this point, obviously there might be free agent moves that happen within the next few days or weeks, and we will try to cover those on the pods coming up. But right now, all the quarterback and running back moves that we think are relevant, and there's been so many, as you're going to hear here in a little bit, especially for fantasy impact for this upcoming season. But first, let's go ahead and jump right on into prayer, and then we're going to talk about some sponsors and then get right on the meat of the episode. So, God, just thank you so much for just giving us the ability in this platform to talk about something that we love and enjoy so much in the game of football and fantasy. And we just know and just keep pretending, I just hope that we never forget that none of this is possible without you, and just continue to also just keep letting us be a light for you and shine and further your kingdom, Lord. And just thank you for everything you continue to bless us with and in this wonderful game, and just let us go and serve you in your name, and let your will be done, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. So some of the same sponsors, some new sponsors from last year. Big Reed BBQ, one of our staples. Mimi's Children's Boutique. Thank y'all for hanging in there and, putting up with us this whole time. Another one from last year, Doug Demona Farm and Feed. Y'all probably remember them coming on, I think, about midway last year. They're still with us. And then a couple new ones that were not with us last year when we were doing this. But if y'all listen to Crossroads, you probably heard a little bit about them. Crown Detailing and Championship Carts. So thank y'all guys for coming on board with us. And just like all our other episodes, we're going to have a title sponsor. And our title sponsor for this episode is going to be Big Reed BBQ. Big Reed BBQ started as a family recipe in 1986. Our mild flavor is right on time, and our spicy is just enough heat. Owner Ken Reed, Director of Marketing Andre Leonard say you can get our sauce at Doug DeMona Farm and Feed, Time to Shine Detail, the Salty Brahma, the Equipment Store, and Amazon. And who does not have Amazon? For Pete's sake, that means everybody can get this barbecue sauce. It is great on ribs, pulled pork, you name it, get it. Your kids like barbecue. If they're like mine, they dip just about everything: French fries, chicken nuggets, pizza, whatever he can in barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
Get you some Big Reed. Order it on Amazon. Go pick it up at some of these wonderful stores and that are local. And we appreciate you, Big Reed. You support us, and we're going to do our best to get the word out to support you. So thank y'all. And then some of the pods coming up, just kind of previewing. We'll do this a couple times just to let y'all know what's coming. So this pod's covering new players, new places, new faces, new places, however you want to say it. I mean, that's a tongue twister in itself.
Yeah.
But this one's going to cover quarterbacks and running backs. Our next pod's going to cover wide receivers and tight ends. And then we're going to have some breakout player picks, bust player picks, sleeper player picks, and bounce back player picks. And something to do to make the pods a little bit more compact. We're going to break those up into individual pods for y'all this year. So it's not going to be one mega pod that, you'll have to listen to over maybe several days or over an hour. Hopefully it's going to be a lot shorter pods that you can just, catch on your way to work or on your way back from work, something real quick, maybe on your lunch break. But those are some that we're going to do coming up. Normally, in the past, I do latest injury news and updates, but because there's so much content to cover on this pod and the next one, we are going to skip that because also there's a lot of guys that are out right now that are going to be back before the year that aren't even going to matter for your fantasy team. So unless there's really a season-ending injury, we probably won't even cover any injury or news. Well, we might cover news updates, but we're not going to cover any injury updates until closer to the season. Maybe closer to the sleeper picks or the bounce back picks. So unless
there really isn't anything significant this year that I can think of.
Not really yet. There's always that one guy that goes out and plays one play, of team versus team OTAs or whatever, and they tear their ACL or something.
I always think back to Jordy Nelson. He did it with the Packers once, and we had our draft
after the draft.
Yeah, we had our draft a little bit earlier.
Man.
So someone drafted him, and then boom, he's gone. That's just the worst feeling. So draft late. That's our number one advice.
Yeah, if you can draft the last day before
Labor Day.
Wednesday before season starts. Yeah, Labor Day's popular, man. Yeah. Dude, I can't tell you how many drafts everybody tries to schedule on Labor Day. I'm like, look, guys, I got other stuff to do. I can only have one draft that night.
Yeah.
I've had some where it's like we draft that morning, and then I do Labor Day stuff, and then I got another draft that night. It's crazy. But, yeah, that's a popular day, or that Sunday night before after church, or something like that. Or, heck, that Wednesday night after church before the games start on Thursday. That's about as late as it gets.
That's right.
I've even heard rumors about people drafting like Thursday morning.
Yeah.
Like, you don't talk about my goodness, but you got to do those online. Otherwise, you ain't got time to put that stuff in.
That's right.
But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and roll on into it because there's so much to talk about, so much good stuff. And like I was telling Clay before this pod started, I was not even as fired up. I've been so busy with the Crossroads pod and church and just life in general. And those that you don't know, I've got a baby coming in November.
There you go.
Another boy. So that's getting ready for that. It has just been crazy chaos, but getting ready for this pod has really got me fired up with all these moves, all these talk of these players. Man, I am juiced for fantasy now. So we're going to jump right on into it with the quarterback moves.
For our wide receiver pod later, you might have to rewrite it. We just had a big move. Willie Snead signed with the Dolphins.
Oh, Willie Snead! What, to retire? I hope it was for a one-day contract to retire. There's no freaking way he plays. And that's the last thing the Dolphins need is another ancient wide receiver.
Yeah.
They got OBJ for Pete's sake.
Right.
He can only play 50% of the plays, and he's still injured right now. So
Willie Snead for the other 50%.
Willie Snead coming back out of the depths of the dark. Honestly, I expected the Saints to sign him because Lord knows they didn't sign anybody else relevant this year.
Yep, that's right.
But that's another. We'll talk about that we'll talk about that later because I could go all day on that.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so jumping into quarterbacks, I appreciate that though, Clay. That was a good little caveat in there. I needed that laugh.
Willie Snead, man. Saints
Willie
legend.
Snead, my goodness. So quarterback moves, and I don't know if it's the number one quarterback move this year, but it is definitely probably one of the more fantasy impactful, I think. And that's old Captain Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta from Minnesota. And boy, if that wasn't a big enough move, did we rid ourselves of Arthur, a.k.a. the Karen Smith, out of there, because, Lord, did he not want to do anything. I mean, he was about the most controversial coach and, offensive play caller, I think, ever in fantasy, because it was like, if it should be fantasy relevant, he deemed it not to be so. But anyway, so he's gone. Kirk Cousins is in Atlanta, and, man, is this not terrible news for New Orleans. My goodness. I'm hoping that, our defense is still pretty stout, and we brought a bunch of guys out. But I'll tell you, Kirk Cousins come to Atlanta. I feel like this is like if Matt Ryan was back there in his prime, in the middle of it, kind of, maybe toward the end of it. But with their new offense, I think this is a big upgrade for the Atlanta offense. He's coming off an Achilles injury last year. Y'all probably remember that. If you had Jamar Jefferson, you probably pooped your pants a little bit.
Yeah.
But it ended up working out for you. Not Jamar Jefferson. Sorry, Justin Jefferson. Boy, that's way back. But anyway, if you had Jefferson, you probably remember that. But he's coming back off that Achilles injury. But word is that he looks good. He's been practicing pretty much in full. I don't know if they've removed him from PUP. I don't know how that works. But I know that he's pretty much practicing without restrictions.
Yeah, there hasn't really been any doubts of him not playing one.
Yeah. But honestly, as a fantasy move for him, I think this is kind of a lateral move. Because he had it pretty much made in Minnesota with Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook forever. That offense, that was good, and I think he was pretty much maxed his potential out there, but I don't think it's a decrease for him. But if anything, it's a big boost for Atlanta. Okay, big boost for their pass catchers and their running backs. Between that and, like I said, Arthur Smith getting kicked out, I think this is huge. Now, their head coach, Raheem Morris, is a defensive-minded head coach. But what a lot of people might not realize is, especially casual fan, that Raheem Morris came over from the Rams, right? Not only did Raheem Morris come over, he brought his buddy Zach Robinson over, who was the quarterback coach at the Rams. And you can't tell me he didn't learn a thing or two from Sean McVay over there. I'm just saying.
Also, was a guy the Saints interviewed Zach Robinson to be ROC, and instead he went to the Falcons.
Yeah, because we're idiots.
The backup plan,
Yeah, because we're idiots. Don't even get me started on that, Clay. Yeah. God bless America. So, anyway.
The Kirk move overall is just, like you said, I mean, I don't think you're going to see Kirk change much from, the top 15 to 10 quarterback that he's already been. But
safe
Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson,
Drake London.
Darnell Mooney even might have.
Darnell Mooney. All right. Hey, that's next pod. pod.
Okay.
Calm down.
There's a lot of movements for Atlanta, and I think it's gonna be a big year for Kirk.
All good news. And man, I could talk more on Kirk Cousins, but I don't think there's really much more to say. He's going to be another safe floor guy.
Stay healthy.
I bet Josh drafts him without a doubt.
That's right.
Because he drafts him, I think, from what I've heard, every year.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to jump back in on Kirk Cousins. But yeah, I mean, nothing but good news for Kirk Cousins in this offense, I think, and for this offense for Kirk Cousins and vice versa. So I think that's big. Now we're going to jump right on into my arch nemesis, Russell Wilson, going from Denver to Pittsburgh. I can tell you one thing that I've learned over the last 2 seasons here, Clay, is that I'm not picking Russ Bus for a comeback, because I've done that the last 2 years, and I'm pretty sure that somebody just poured sugar in the gas tank of the Russ Bus, and it's just done for.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I feel like Russell Wilson, I want to believe that he's not done, but I think he's about almost the poster child for washed up. I mean, it is what it is. And, he's there, I think, more to, I guess you could say, mentor Justin Fields. He'll be the starter, but I think he's there more to mentor Justin Fields. But you know what else is really sad about this situation for Russell Wilson going from Denver to Pittsburgh is that Arthur, the AKA Karen Smith, is in Pittsburgh. And if we have not learned our lesson on dealing with Arthur Smith in Atlanta is that trust nothing with fantasy with this man. And I think this is just, I mean, honestly, I don't think I could draft Russell Wilson. I've got him on my dynasty team, and I'm really thinking about dropping him for Daniel Jones. And anybody that's in that league that's listening to this, y'all, don't be going out there and picking up Daniel Jones on me.
So to bring some positivity, it's hard to bring a lot of positivity to Russ. I do think that his situation in Pittsburgh isn't awful. I like Jalen Warren out the backfield. I think George Pickens has a lot of talent. Pat Freiermuth, solid tight end. Like the weapons aren't incredible. Probably a slight downgrade from Denver. And with Arthur Smith, he was definitely over his head in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But if you think back to his Tennessee time, he kind of rejuvenated Ryan Tannehill's career. And I mean, Tannehill certainly wasn't like a fantasy stud, but he was probably a fringe 15, 10. Like he was a playable guy.
But
good Tennessee teams.
Tannehill was still good after Smith left. So,
but you definitely saw a slight drop, and he did get a little bit older and everything. So
maybe so.
There is a chance that Arthur Smith can kind of bring some use back to Russ.
So what I've heard from some of the other pods that I listen to in fantasy, so experts, the thinking is that what's his name? Mike Tomlin will keep him from making dumb decisions.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can put it. And they think that they will keep Arthur Smith as far as personnel and who to use in that personnel versus calling plays. They think that Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh organization is not going to not use Russell Wilson, not use George Pickens, not use Jalen Warren, and not use Freiermuth, all these guys that are stalwarts in their franchise. They don't think they're going to let him just not use them like he did with Pitts in London in Bijan. So that's the hope. And then I put all right. So I want to preface this also on these next pods with these new new faces, guys. A lot of these players are either starters or high possibility for starters. Not very many of these people are not starters or are going to play much. Like if I put them on this list, they're going to be, but this next guy's not a starter. Justin Fields going from Chicago to Pittsburgh. A lot of the same stuff is prefaced from Russell Wilson to Justin Fields.
Yeah.
But I put him on this list because I do firmly think that Justin Fields will be the starter before the season's over. Just because I think the only purpose they signed both of them is because they think Fields is the future, which I agree with him. I think Fields got a bad shake in Chicago. I mean, you got to think about he come into a situation, had a new coach, new offensive coordinator, pretty much every time he turned around, changed his underwear. The worst offensive line in NFL, and if I'm not mistaken, one of the worst in NFL history while he was there.
He was
a rookie, having to figure it out on his own, had no mentor ahead of him to learn from. I mean, there's a ton of reason to explain why Justin Fields didn't succeed, and he was still pretty fantasy relevant. So, and I mean, I watched him play several times. Dude has it. I think could be a good quarterback. Yeah. I think he is Tua with a better arm and more mobility, and probably more and healthier. I mean, and he's just Tua landed in a better spot.
You won't get me to disagree with you on Fields. I've liked Fields for a long time.
He was somebody I was hoping that we would bring in sit under Derek Carr.
That was another thing I was going to say. For the price that they paid for him, man, it's a flyer.
Dude,
give him a shot.
So anyway, but Fields is there in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a smart organization, and I think they've seen that. And Tomlin's a smart coach, obviously, because he still hasn't had a losing season, if I'm not mistaken, in his career.
Yeah,
and
crazy.
So
he always finds a way back to that 500.
And I think Fields is probably going into a better situation for him as a player, and maybe in the future as fantasy than he was in. Because he's still going to have the availability to run. They're not afraid to let their quarterbacks run in Pittsburgh. He's got George Pickens. He's got Freiermuth. He's got Jalen Warren. They've got some possible up-and-coming wide receivers. I don't like their backups other than Pickens. I don't really like anybody else, which I'm not going to talk about them, even though they got some new people. But I don't think they're really relevant right now. But I think they're looking for another couple years, not this year. Yeah. That's just me on Pittsburgh.
And with Fields, I wouldn't be – even though Russ is going to be the starter, especially for the first probably half of the season, I wouldn't be shocked if Fields does find his way on the field in some type of wildcat situation or something like that, just because he is that talented with his legs, and they might use him not to the extreme that we use Taysom Hill, but in a similar way.
That's right.
I wouldn't be shocked if they try to, get a little creative with that.
Yeah. So Fields in Pittsburgh, Wilson in Pittsburgh. Moving on to the next guy, Sam Darnold, Uncle Sam, from San Francisco to Minnesota. Now, this is an upgrade for Sam Darnold to me, because I feel like he's got better weapons.
It's the best weapons he's ever had in his career.
I mean, the last year he had, but he didn't really play a lot last year for San Fran.
Yeah.
So you can't really count that. But I think it's an upgrade for him in fantasy value, but I think it's a downgrade for Minnesota. But I also am not 100% sure he's going to be the guy all year. But it's an upgrade for Sam Darnold. He's in Minnesota now. He's going to be the guy throwing to Justin Jefferson, who I think will be okay. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be terrible for Justin Jefferson having Sam Darnold throwing. I think he's better than that good.
You're going to figure out how to be good.
and Jefferson was great with Nick Mullins last year, and I think Darnold's better than Nick Mullins. So I think Darnold going there, good for him. Not as good for the rest of the players in Minnesota, but I think he also might not be somebody terrible for J.J. McCarthy to learn from, because Darnold's an extremely smart NFL player. And I think that's what McCarthy needs. He needs somebody like that to look at, to tell him the ins and the outs, and just to let him learn some stuff from him before he gets thrown in. But I think the pressure's on for McCarthy there. JJ is going to be putting the pressure on Darnold. I think the public is going to be putting the pressure on Minnesota to play McCarthy, because he's the hometown kid. He's the future of the franchise to them. I'm not sold on him in the NFL. And I'm not talking about him in this pod because he's not a starter, and I don't think he'll really be that relevant anytime soon.
The only thing I can say is that NFL scouts absolutely loved him, and usually they know a little bit more than we do. So maybe they're right, but I never really believed in J.J. McCarthy.
But there's been quite a few prospects that the NFL scouts have loved that didn't work out.
That's true.
So I'm not saying that I know more than them by any means.
That's right.
I just have a bad feeling about McCarthy. I don't see it, because they love Zach Wilson to an extent.
They love Sam Darnold.
And they love Sam Darnold.
Is fourth team.
Yeah, I mean, and so I think, to me, if you're saying that J.J. McCarthy's going to be them, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I could see that.
The positive for Sam Darnold would be, in New York, he had nothing. In Carolina, he had nothing. San Francisco, he was on the bench.
He was the backup.
This is the last chance for him to, if this doesn't work, he's a career backup for the rest of his life.
But and that's probably not terrible.
You've got a good head coach with O'Connell, great offensive play caller. You've got Aaron Jones, good receiving back out the backfield. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. You've got weapons. You've got legit weapons that can work. We saw Josh Dobbs do it last year. Plenty of people have gone to Minnesota and been fantasy relevant as a quarterback. So Darnold could make this work, and maybe he was the number 3 overall pick for a reason. So there's something there.
Am I seeking him out to draft him as a quarterback? Probably not. So just letting you know where I'm at.
But in a 12-team league, maybe he's a guy.
2-quarterback league. Second quarterback, sure. But maybe.
Put him on your
maybe somebody you put on your watch list, like you said, or if it's a deep league for a backup for that bye week, and you're willing to cut him if somebody emerges. But there's plenty other guys I draft before him.
Definitely.
And then so next guy I want to talk about is Jacoby Brissett, going from Washington to New England, and everybody's probably like, why are we talking about Jacoby Brissett? Well, he's going to be the starter for a little while. I do like the guy that's behind him way more than J.J. McCarthy and Drake May, but I'm not talking about him on this pod because he's not starting. Jacoby Brissett is for now. And, I mean, Jacoby Brissett's been in New England. They like Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett is a decent, serviceable quarterback.
Yeah.
And, I kind of feel like Jacoby Brissett and Sam Darnold are fairly similar. Jacoby Brissett might be a little bit better passer. But either way, I think this is a good situation.
Certainly got the weapon advantage.
I really think that Jacoby Brissett is probably an upgrade for New England's offense over Mac Jones. Definitely. I mean, hence they let him go to bring in Brissett. So I I think it's good. I mean, now Mac Jones is backing up Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. You think he's going to get that job without an injury? I don't think so, Tim. But I do like Brissett. I think he's an upgrade to New England's offense. I think it's an upgrade for Brissett. I think it's a win-win for that team. Is New England probably breaking any records? Probably not. But I do think they're going to have some fantasy relevant players, and I think Jacoby Brissett's another one of those you put on the watch list. Maybe you put him in as a bye week fill-in just to see how the offense goes. But for the most part, Gerard Mayo's the head coach, defensive-minded head coach. There's a Bill Belichick protege. Not saying it's going to be a Bill Belichick team. I think it's good news that he's gone offensively. The offensive coordinator they brought in is the same offensive coordinator that's been the Browns' offensive coordinator for the last 4 years. So
is it Van Pelt?
Yes.
Okay.
I kept wanting to say Scott Van Pelt, but it's Alex Van Pelt.
Alex, yeah.
But anyway, so I mean, there's not a lot to tell. Better situation for New England to me. Better situation for Brissett. He's a watch list quarterback, bye week fill-in at best to me.
I love Drake May, and I think he's going to be awesome. Yeah, eventually.
I think Drake May is going to be the future. I think he's going to be pressuring Brissett, but I also don't think that New England's going to rush him in there.
Yeah,
I think they're going to give him some time without an injury. So that's where we're at with that. That's Jacoby Brissett, New England. Next guy we're going to talk about, we have all right, so I've got 3 rookies we're going to talk about next, and then a backup that I think will be relevant next that's in a quarterback battle. So next of the first of the rookies is going to be the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams. Got drafted in Chicago, relieved Justin Fields of his duties as quarterback. Williams is supposed to be a generational quarterback that's going to change the culture and the franchise of Chicago, right? I'm not sold because he couldn't even carry USC, okay? Like, now this college, he doesn't have all the – and I'll be honest, he's got a slew of – I mean, he is set up for success. Like, if anybody ever was coming in – I mean, I'm pretty sure I could go out there and probably be a competent quarterback with the talent that he has around him in Chicago.
Awesome. It's pretty awesome.
So if he doesn't succeed in year 1, he's garbage. I don't care what anybody says. Like, straight up, like, if you don't succeed with this team, I mean, any of these rookie quarterbacks I feel like could come in and succeed probably with this team. Now, the only thing is he doesn't – his O-line's, because Chicago had an O-line.
But it's still not great. Nah.
But I think that's the reason that the Fields didn't succeed primarily. Yeah. If Fields would have come into this situation, I think Fields is still there. That's just me. But I just don't like Caleb Williams. I don't like his attitude, honestly. I don't think he's a great leader, personally. Just from what I've heard, what I've seen, just little articles written here and there about his attitude, about his me, and then at USC, like I said, all right, so if he's supposed to be the next Andrew Luck took Stanford to Pac-12 championship, and if I'm not mistaken, to a major bowl game. Where was Caleb Williams at?
He was with the USC defense that would give up 60 a game. That was definitely a factor.
Andrew Luck left, and I don't think Stanford won 5 games. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Stanford's been pretty bad.
He took them to a major bowl game.
Yeah.
And I feel like if Williams was that kind of talent, he would have been able to lift his team in that way. Now, obviously, you start comparing.
I think Caleb's an awesome player. He's definitely polarizing. That's the.
I'm not saying he's not an awesome player. Yeah. I just don't know if he's the leader and generational talent that they're expecting.
Yeah, and I think that we're going to be talking a lot more about this over the next month because they've got Hard Knocks this year. So you're going to get to see that little behind the scenes look at the organization. And I mean, 2 years ago, no one even cared about the Lions or believed in them. And then you watch Hard Knocks, you're like, I'm in on this team, and now we see where they're at. So we'll get a glimpse at what it's like, but who knows, man.
So not only that, but you have the culture in Chicago, which can be very rough as far as quarterbacks are concerned. And then on top of that, so I've seen a lot of argument about Caleb Williams and his time at USC, and the truthers believe that he was not worried about USC because he was focusing on the NFL. So are you wanting a guy that's not all the way in if he's not worried about it? Or are you want an ultimate competitor that does not matter the situation, that he's all in and he's going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've heard a lot of that he was not worried about it at USC because he was focusing on his career in the NFL. And to me, I feel like that's not the quarterback you want for your team, personally.
Yeah.
Now there might be a lot of guys.
It's going to be a wait and see thing for sure.
Yeah.
But from a fantasy standpoint,
he's
DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, Cole Kmet, like he's got all the weapons in the world. I think he's going to be pretty good this year. I think
he should put up some points. We'll see if he gets in over his head, because if he gets out there and the game is a lot faster, then because I mean if he really didn't care at USC and he goes out there and he cares now, then I mean, you know, I'm sure we'll see something we haven't seen.
The good thing for him is that the first 6 games before his bye week are very favorable. Yeah. He's got a good schedule to open up the year, so that's a good thing. Like he's not getting, you know, he's not going to Green Bay week 1 or something like that. You know, a tough place to play for a rookie. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a good season for Caleb. Right now, he's listed as 16 on ESPN's quarterback rankings. So not a starter necessarily, but you know, a high-end backup that can be one of them guys. And, you know, if he could have that CJ Stroud type of year this year.
And I don't think you should not draft him as your QB1, but if you do, you better pair him with somebody that's right out that QB1 range in preparation.
You could pair Caleb Williams with Matthew Stafford,
Jared Goff. Yep. So Kirk Cousins, which I think has slipped out of that QB1 range, but I think should still be in it like he was in Minnesota. But I don't know. I haven't looked at a lot of those rankings yet.
I mean, it's crazy that Jared Goff's 21, and I'll start him. Like I guess we just got that many quarterbacks in the NFL that are good now.
Caleb Williams in Chicago. We're going to see how it happens. Yeah. I mean, I might be completely wrong, but we'll see. The next guy, of course, draft pick number 2. The second quarterback off the board, Jaden Daniels in Washington. And, you know, I'm also one of those guys, I hate to be like this, but I am one of those, if you can do it in the SEC, you're probably a lot more ready for the NFL than anybody else.
Yeah.
Personally. I'm not saying that the SEC is the best.
Pretty much, it's the minor leagues.
But if you can do it in the NFL, I believe you have a better chance to succeed, especially when you're in the in the SEC, than any other place. And we've seen Jaden Daniels do that. We've seen him sneak out of there with a Heisman.
That's right.
And he went second overall to Washington. Not as good of a situation as Chicago, but not bad either with some of the weapons that they've acquired and that they have currently. We'll talk more about that as we go, but he's relieving Sam Howell, who we've seen be very successful. And I believe is a far more talented quarterback than Sam Howell. Definitely a more mobile quarterback than Sam Howell.
Yeah.
Which Sam Howell was a decent mobile quarterback. But now Sam Howell's in Seattle, you know, backing up Uncle Gino, and you know, Daniels is supposed to be the second best of Williams. I'm just not sold. I think Daniels is the best quarterback of the draft class. I'm not the only one that thinks that, but I'm trying. And it's not a homer pick. It's just because of the competition he faced, the stats he put up, the way he was elevated his team, like what you hear about the players talk about him. I just feel like that is more of what you expect from a franchise quarterback than what you've heard about Caleb Williams. That's just me.
Yeah, there's, I mean, like you said, there's a lot of people that thought, you know, Daniel should be that number 1 guy. I mean, I know Lewis Riddick on ESPN was really banging the table for him. And for me, I've been a Daniels fan. I mean, obviously LSU fan, but I liked Daniels the year before he won the Heisman, when pretty much everyone was like, he's not the guy. And then, you know, the next year he really became the guy. But I was defending him then, and it hurts. But my gut feeling is that something's not going to work for him in the NFL. I don't know why. Like, I want to love him. My gut feeling is that some of the running issues are going to come back to haunt him. He is, you know, not the best of, you know, built. He's a little skinny.
Under 200 pounds is what I heard. Yeah, they said he was at the combine at 200, a little over 200, but they said you could tell it was water weight.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
so
the last
rough.
number 2 overall mobile quarterback that went to Washington.
Yeah.
He looked really good, and then he got hurt.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to say. I agree with you. The only thing that holds Daniels back to me is injury.
Yeah.
And if he does not look at the Lamar Jackson film to figure out what to do with that, then because I do think, I mean, you remember Lamar at Louisville. Jaden Daniels don't look far from that.
No.
Now, is he quite as shifty as Lamar and smooth? I don't know about that, but speed, burst, and instincts, I think they're there. So if he watches that Lamar film and figures out how to not get smoked, then before he gets like some kind of career-ending injury, like RG3 almost, then I think that is something to be concerned about with Daniels. The best way to put this
for me is that I think Daniels has, if he stays healthy, I think he has the best chance to be probably the best quarterback for just, fantasy and just overall this year as a rookie. But I think 5 years from now, I'd take Caleb Williams. I'd probably take Drake May. And then, hopefully Jaden's still, not banged up too much in 5 years and still hanging around there. But and we saw him take so many hits at LSU and just get right back up from it. So
but he better not think that's going to happen in the NFL.
Yeah. But like you said, I mean, the guys that were hitting them in Alabama aren't too far off from the guys that'll be hitting them in the NFL.
You're right.
So
you're right. So
maybe he can do it. But I hope he does.
Jaden Daniels, Washington, starting quarterback.
Scary Terry has a real quarterback.
Yeah, and he's got Austin Eckler now. Zach Ertz, and then
what does Eckler have in the tank? We'll talk about that later.
I know, and Jahan Dotson.
Yeah.
And then who's that other wide receiver? I got it right here. Hang on, I got my depth charts ready, son. The other wide receiver, Luke McCaffrey, the rookie. And then De'Ami Brown. We talked about De'Ami Brown.
Absolutely.
But Luke McCaffrey, the rookie. So he's got some weapons, and so we'll see what happens. But enough
Zach
about
Ertz
him.
Tight end. There we go. I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, that's why I just said that. So
wow.
And then they got that big time rookie, Ben Sinnott. And we're going to talk about him in a little bit. But and Zach Ertz. But and that's on the next pod.
Oh, and one thing that not someone that will play, but Marcus Mariota behind him. I love that. I don't think there's a better veteran for Jaden Daniels than Marcus Mariota.
To tell him what not to do when he runs.
Style, body build, like everything about Marcus. Yeah, Marcus didn't really pan out, but he's been around the league a lot. He was a solid quarterback. Learned from a lot of the best minds in football. I mean, he was in Philadelphia for a while with Chip Kelly and them. So I think that's definitely a positive, and that's something you want from a rookie quarterback. You want someone to have that veteran presence behind them.
I like the situation. If he doesn't get hurt, I like Jaden Daniels.
Just avoid Micah Parsons.
Sure. Yes. But on to the next guy. A guy that, really, if you compare to the rest of the guys on this list, maybe a couple of them, but Bo Nix in Denver. It looks like he's going to be the starter, which is crazy, but because a lot of people had him 5th and 6th on the draft board as their quarterback, and you got, Drake May backing up in, New England that a lot of people thought could have been the number 1. But then you got Bo Nix in Denver, relieving Russ Wilson of his duties, and Nix comes in with probably the most game experience, though, of any rookie quarterback in the draft. I know it is because I've heard it several times. And I think he started like some kind of crazy amount of games. And I really believe Sean Payton probably took that into account drafting him. And then not only that, but Sean Payton sought Nix out in the draft. I think he was probably planning to draft Nix almost the whole time, because Sean Payton's a fairly calculated individual that doesn't do many things by accident or by, I guess you could say, gut. So, not gut. That's terrible, because I do know he does some gut calls on the field as far as plays, but he's setting stuff up for the long term, especially player personnel. And I think Bo Nix was one of those that he was planning on picking and starting because he knew he had the experience. He's got the intangibles. He's probably got the work ethic and the attitude that he's looking for when he interviewed him. So Bo Nix in Denver, we'll see if Sean Payton can work his magic. He was pretty successful at Oregon,
I mean, the player that he was the player he was at Auburn was awful and never an NFL quarterback. The player he became at Oregon is like very viable option to be really good
and
year one.
More successful than Caleb Williams at USC.
Yeah,
just saying.
He was.
Not saying he doesn't have he doesn't have the intangibles, but or I guess the athleticism more than that, because there's more of that than. But anyway, so Bo Nix in Denver. I do feel like that Sean Payton will probably make him at least to be a serviceable option at quarterback. Is he worth drafting? I don't think so. I think he might be worth watching. I don't even know. I mean, he might not have the job, because
Stidham might beat him out.
You still have Jarrett Stidham. You still have Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be either one. I think they're going to give Bo Nix the run because he's going to come in. He's going to know what he's doing. He's been a quarterback for a while. He's probably been a quarterback for longer than Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's probably been a quarterback more than Jarrett Stidham has, and he's been in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, as a matter of fact, I think he was a starter somewhere when Jarrett Stidham was still in college, So, I mean, there's
Stidham was at Auburn as well. So, right when Stid went to the NFL might have been the year Nix came in and got the starting job for his freshman year at Auburn. So that
he might have had something to do with him getting drafted, for all we know.
Yeah. I mean, Bo Nix, though, not a player I love personally, but I mean, it's hard to deny what he did at Oregon. He was very good. And like you said, Sean Payton, it's just, and if he doesn't start week one, if Stid does get the job, then I still expect Nix to get the, I would expect Nix to start probably in the first 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I will say, nobody liked Drew Brees either before he got to New Orleans, really.
That's right. Yeah.
So now that's a whole different situation, different player. I mean, for all we know, he's got that same mentality. Who knows? Yeah. But nobody liked Drew Brees either, and that's why the Chargers let him go, and nobody else really wanted him except for New Orleans.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that pans out. But the last but not least player for quarterback, which is not a starter, but in the middle of a quarterback competition, but was a starter last year, and that's Gardner Minshew, went from Indianapolis to the Raiders. And I'll be honest, I've thought Gardner Minshew's been starting caliber since he was in Jacksonville.
Yeah,
and the dude cannot catch a break.
That after that year he had, that people were like, "Don't draft Lawrence. You don't need him. We got Minshew."
And he has not gotten a chance, really. I mean, he did fine in Indianapolis. I mean, half the time he didn't have Jonathan Taylor, then he got Jonathan Taylor back, and then Pittman was hurt for a little bit, and they lost Josh Downs, and he didn't have a tight end, and Indianapolis wasn't winning the Super Bowl. But I'm just saying, if you get the right team, Gardner Minshew could be a Joe Flacco and win the Super Bowl, like he did with the Ravens. I'm just saying, Gardner Minshew could be that guy. He's good enough, but he might even be better than Joe Flacco back in the day. Who knows? But Gardner Minshew is at the Raiders. Sorry, the Raiders. They're not winning the Super Bowl, guys. I hate to let everybody out there know, but the Raiders are not winning They're not winning the show.
I think it's safe to
It's just not going to happen.
I think it's safe to
okay.
say.
I mean, they sold the house, and poor Devontae Adams is still hanging on over there. I wouldn't even go to practice. I'd just be like, trade me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because, I get honoring your contract, but, you're wasting what little time you have left is Devontae Adams.
He'll be a Saint or a Jet by the end of the year.
Well, yeah, we're not smart enough to sign him in New Orleans.
Yeah,
so,
that's probably true.
But anyway, so you got Gardner Minshew. They're battling it out with Aiden O'Connell. And, I mean, he's splitting first-team reps with O'Connell now. But the rumor is if the quarterback competition's close, they're going to go with O'Connell because he was there last year. He knows the offense a little bit better. But that's something else underrated about Gardner Minshew is he's a pretty smart cat. So I don't think it'll take him too long to pick up the offense and learn it. But he is battling O'Connell. He could end up winning the job, which is why he's on this list. And if he does, they still have some solid weapons who I think could make him very viable in fantasy with Devontae Adams, with
Jacoby Myers.
Jacoby Myers. I went blank. Sorry. Zamir White. At wide receiver, Brock Bowers at tight end, who I think is not the tight end one, even though he's listed as that. Mike Mayer as the tight end 2, who was a tight end, big-time tight end prospect coming in, and didn't really have that. Like, he didn't have that opportunity because that was when whatchamacallit was still there.
Waller
was still there, and now he's done retired.
Yeah.
Lord, don't even get me started on that.
Yeah, I think people kind of forget about Brock Bowers. I mean, arguably, people were saying he should be a top 2 pick this year, top 3 pick, maybe the best player in the draft, and he went 12. Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird situation going to Vegas.
Yeah.
Like, that didn't feel like a need necessarily for them. But I mean, talent is talent. And yeah, he could be he could be a Sam Laporta this year. He honestly
he could be.
He's got that talent.
He could be. The only thing is, Antonio Pierce has already come out and said he's got to learn to block.
Well, just put him in the slot. Who cares?
So I'm just saying, like, he might not be playing tight end, but he'll be playing somewhere, I would think. But that's the only thing that gives.
He's trying to talk strong, trying to get the locker room.
Maybe so, but like you said, they could gadget play Brock Bowers somewhere.
Yeah,
and
he's got talent.
And there's weapons there to be had. So I think Gardner Minshew going to the Raiders is relevant because we could see Minshew out there again as a low end, a back, definitely at least a bye week fill in, and possibly somebody that a good matchup. Or I don't think he'll be low end QB1 because there's so much at QB. Especially if you say 12-team league, like 12 QBs, I think you're probably talking 15 or so for him. But definitely somebody, if you have an injury or a bye week, he's somebody, if he's starting, definitely relevant for Las Vegas. So,
yeah, and depending on the matchup, not the best of divisions. I mean, Kansas City obviously has a good defense. The Chargers, I'm sure, will be a better defense this year.
Yeah.
But here and there might be a good matchup for him, and you're like,
that's right.
If
he beats out O'Connell, I think it's relevant. So
yeah.
But that's going to round out our quarterbacks, and we've only got 1,000 running backs to talk about, so we're going to keep this on rolling. And I like to call this segment the running back roulette because there's been, so many changes. You can say the running back carousel,
probably the craziest offense I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, off season was nuts.
For running backs.
You're talking 9 new starters for new teams that are very relevant.
It's crazy.
But we're going to start off number 1 with Saquon. Finally getting out of purgatory in New York, getting away from the Giants to Philadelphia. Boy, what an upgrade for an outstanding running back. Going now, I know they lost Jason Kelce. But I was told, and I haven't looked it up personally, but I remember hearing on one of the podcasts, that even without Jason Kelce, that Philadelphia is still ranked or rated as a top 5 offensive line.
Yeah, the guy that's replacing him, I believe, is Landon Dickinson, who he was a elite guy in Alabama, like great player in college and everything. So they were kind of grooming him to be ready to fill in and everything. That O-line's incredible. Yep. Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson at the tackles is enough to be said. Yep. And overall, not having just nothing else on the offense to where you have to just stack the box and we're not going to let Saquon beat us. You've got to guard Devontae Smith. You've got to guard AJ Brown. You've got to trust Jalen Hurts' legs.
Dallas Goedert's still there.
It's a dream come true for Saquon.
And you got to know that they're going to try to not. Hurts is still going to run, but they're going to hand that ball to Saquon when you get to that goal line, probably.
Yeah,
the only thing that'll
be an interesting thing will be how does the tush push happen now that Kelsey's gone? Do they even continue trying it?
And you line Saquon up at fullback, and you put somebody behind him to push him.
Yeah, them quads of Saquon can make something happen.
But anyway, big move. I think a big boost for Saquon's value. Hopefully, it's not too late as far as all his injuries. That's the only thing I think holds him back is injuries, because I think this is monstrous for his value. And then the next one. Josh Jacobs, another running back that's been in purgatory for who knows how long, and going to Green Bay. What an upgrade for Josh Jacobs.
The shocker of the offseason to me.
Out of one of the worst offenses in the NFL to one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL. And Aaron Jones is gone. A.J. Dillon's there. Lord knows he couldn't do it. And then they draft a rookie that he's not going to do it because he can't hold on the ball and he can't stay healthy. This is a Josh Jacobs show.
Yeah.
That's all it is to it. I think he can catch passes. We've seen it. He's a goal line back. He's the total package. And he's going with Jordan Love, who's looked very competent last year in moving the ball in the Matt LaFleur offense that likes to run the ball and throw to the running backs.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate spot for Josh Jacobs. Dude, if this ain't the year of the running back with some of these moves to these teams, I don't know what is,
Yeah.
So Josh Jacobs going from Las Vegas to Green Bay, big upgrade at O-line, big upgrade at quarterback, big upgrade at offensive scheme, honestly.
You think back 2 years ago, Josh Jacobs was he led the NFL in rushing yards and I think rushing touchdowns. He's absolutely got the talent, and he's still kind of young, even though he is on the second contract now. I think he's 25, 26. He's on the younger side, so he's going to be due for a very big year. Really nothing to really be worried about here.
Not at all.
With Saquon, I think you could see maybe Hurts takes a touchdown, maybe Brown or something.
But then you still got the catches because Saquon is such a good pass catcher.
Yeah.
I think you almost eliminate anybody behind him. Kenneth Gainwell was hanging out, for a cup of coffee last year, catching some passes, him and Boston Scott. Dude, I think it's the Saquon show in Philly from now on. So,
definitely. And I think it's the same thing to be said about Josh Jacobs.
And then this next guy, Derrick Henry to Baltimore, Tennessee to Baltimore.
The move everyone's wanted forever.
Why couldn't they have done this 3 years ago? We could have seen Derrick Henry rush for 3,000 yards.
Yeah.
Just saying. Henry, another huge upgrade situation to me. Some could argue that because he did so well in Tennessee, but I think it's just because he was so good. Going from a fairly lackluster offense, borderline to marginal quarterback play, a poor passing attack, to Baltimore with an excellent O-line, a run-heavy offensive scheme, and much better quarterback play. Despite some analysts thinking that Jackson might steal some of his touchdowns, I think it's the opposite. I think Henry steals touchdowns from Jackson because he's so good down there, and they're trying to protect and figure out ways to keep Jackson healthy because they know he's the engine that runs this team.
Absolutely.
This
is it's like a match made in heaven here.
Yeah,
it really is.
So you're talking about 3 offseason moves right here that are just great for running backs in their situations.
And all 3 of these guys could be a top 5 running back at the end of the year, and none of us are surprised.
And could you imagine all the running that Baltimore's done with multiple running backs over the last several years if they had one running back that did all that, they're going to I firmly believe they're going to do with Henry because they let Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins go.
And all the random guys that would just, still carries.
Dude.
Latavius Murray would just show up.
Massive year. As long as Henry stays healthy, massive year.
Yeah, the only guy that might get another touch would be Keaton Mitchell, and that's just kind of a change of pace type of thing because he's obviously probably 50 pounds lighter.
They already said he's going to miss the first 4 weeks at least.
Yeah.
So
whenever he comes back, he'll probably get a breather on Henry's leg.
Yeah. Maybe some third downs, and that's about it. Yeah. So, but anyway, big move for Henry from Tennessee to Baltimore. Next, another big move. I don't think quite as impactful because he's got some competition, but Tony Pollard going from Dallas to Tennessee. Honestly, a lot of us were wrong on Pollard. And I was right there. I was convinced he had a chance to be RB1 last year.
I was so excited.
It didn't happen. It was it was kind of a bust. He was still relevant, but he was a bust. And but goes from Dallas to Tennessee. This is a little bit tougher because Tennessee, we just talked about with Derrick Henry going to Baltimore. Now, the thing is, Tennessee to Baltimore is definitely an upgrade. But Dallas to Tennessee, I think that's a little bit harder of a situation to deal with because I don't think that Tennessee's offense is near as good as Dallas's. Now, I do, and I will talk about Tennessee's new head coach and their offensive coordinator here in a little bit, who I do like. It's definitely a better situation for a pass-catching running back like Pollard. But let's not forget Tajay Spears is still there, who is a great pass catching running back.
Absolutely.
So I think that this is going to be another 1A, 1B situation with Pollard and Spears. I definitely think he's still going to be relevant.
He got paid a lot of money is the only thing that can kind of be like, yeah, they're going to use him. Like, he got paid quite a bit, but
Spears is still on his rookie contract.
Awesome. Yeah,
so he's still on his rookie contract. So are they just buying time until Spears' new contract needs to happen? Maybe. Not saying that they're going to pick Spears. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, they want both of them. Is what I think.
And it's that Tennessee offense is honestly one of the most interesting to me in the whole league because Will Levis looked serviceable last year. Yep. You add Calvin Ridley. You add Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, give him another year. Like
there's Boyd.
Yeah, Tyler Boyd. Like there's a lot to be intrigued by Tennessee, and that's something I haven't said about fantasy for them in a couple years.
So this last little line that I got right here that I want to save is going to allude to a little bit of that. So their new head coach, Brian Callahan, right, was the offensive coordinator in Cincinnati for the last 5 years.
Yep.
If y'all do not forget, he took them and helped get them to a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback. And I mean, I don't know about you, Clay, but if we pretty much most people have considered Cincinnati's offense the last several years as being a high-powered, highly valued offense.
Yeah.
Now, Joe Burrow is not the quarterback here. Will Levis is. He is no Joe Burrow, but he's still not a bad quarterback. And I don't think Brian Callahan maybe he does take the situation because of the head coaching job, but I think you feel like he's probably comfortable with Will Levis being his quarterback. And then not only that, like you said about all these other weapons they added.
And I forgot to even say DeAndre Hopkins. Like that,
yeah, and Hopkins.
He's still there. Yeah. A Concord tight end. Their O-line, they put some money into that. They drafted Latham high. Like there's a lot to be intrigued by Tennessee.
So I dare say, remember those Titans.
That's right.
When it's on draft day. Remember those Titans on draft day. I'm just saying. So Tony Pollard, Dallas to Tennessee. We got to keep moving, Clay, because Lord knows we're already running along. Austin Eckler, Los Angeles Chargers to Washington. Okay. So definitely not as good of a situation, I don't think, because he's got more competition in Washington. He's a little bit older. There's a lot of people saying he's washed up. I don't think that's the case. If you've ever seen that man work out, he's not done yet. Now, is he done being a workhorse? Maybe. But I do think it's not as good of a situation, but I think it's still a serviceable situation. Should he be? I think he is definitely being drafted way too far down for his talent, especially because we know Jaden Daniels will check that ball down to the wide receiver, to the running back.
Yep.
And I think it's a decent situation. I don't think Brian Robinson's going to take the job from him, but I do think he is going to spell him more often than people are thinking. So, but I do think Eckler's the third down back for sure. Do I think when they get down to the goal line, are they going to give it to Brian Robinson some more? Probably steal some of those goal line touches. And there's still Chris Rodriguez, who looked pretty decent last year, which is why I think they felt good about letting Antonio Gibson go. So Austin Eckler going from the Chargers to Washington, probably a little bit of a downgrade for him, but I think he's a little bit downgrade at his point in his career now as it is. But I still think it's a solid offense. I think he's going to be very fantasy relevant. I think he's got a little bit left in the tank, but I think we're going to find out sooner rather than later.
I think
Eckler.
This situation is one that you can look at. Yeah, I mean, the biggest positive is Jaden Daniels, rookie quarterback, with an O-line that's not great, so you're going to be trying to get the ball out quick, you would think.
Yep.
I think you look at this situation, I think Brian Robinson's definitely the running back one, but I think Eckler does get maybe more snap just because, passing situations, he's definitely going to be the third down back, stuff like that. But I think Robinson gets more of the carries, Eckler more of the touches, I guess you could say. Think to like maybe a Zeke and Pollard split back in the day.
Yeah.
Giovanni Bernard role, like something like that, where, he doesn't really get a lot
he does. Yeah. He gets some between the snaps.
Yeah, he does.
I got you.
But I think most of his work's going to be from the passing game this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think also they're going to see how he looks and does at first. Yeah. And I think if he's very successful, and very efficient over Brian. I think we could still see more of a 70-30. But I think they maybe to start out 60-40, 50-50 and kind of go from there, especially with Jaden Daniels, But Robinson's been in the offense too. Eckler's having to learn the offense. So
because Robinson wasn't bad last year.
No, he was not at all. So, but he's also not a dynamic, explosive
Looking
runner
at
either.
ESPN has Robinson at 25 on running backs, Eckler at 32. So not too much of a gap there.
Personally, I'd still take Eckler at that.
Yeah, and for the value, which is, he's ranked number 100 overall. So that's a 10.
Because if he, for some reason, if he comes out and because they got Robinson on the rookie deal, they ain't paid him nothing. Yeah. So if they bring Eckler out as the workhorse for some crazy reason, and you got him at 32, just saying.
Yeah, it's like the 10th round pick you're going to be spending on Eckler. It looks like. That's good value for the shot.
So moving on though, another big name at a new place, Joe Mixon, getting traded from Cincinnati to Houston. I can honestly say I really didn't see him trade him. I really didn't. But he probably wanted that money, and they weren't willing to give him any more, and he is on up there in age a little bit. But he's still been looking pretty good. And but Joe Mixon going from Cincinnati to Houston, I think kind of honestly, it's a very similar situation as Eckler.
Yeah.
Honestly. He did not have the tail off that Eckler has had in his career, but he's an experienced veteran. I've got on here possibly better offense. I don't think it's a better offense. I think it's at best equal because I think Cincinnati's still a better offense. But I do think there's less doubt that he can handle a whole workload than Eckler. So, but there's also still that competition with Pierce and the newly signed Cam Akers behind him competing for touches. I
think Joe Mixon is who he is.
But I think it's the Joe Mixon show.
Yeah.
But I don't think he has a long leash. I think if he struggles or if he gets hurt quick, I think Pierce is going to be in there doing what he can.
We also thought Pierce was due for a big year last year, and it just didn't happen.
Well, I think he's going to. I think if Mixon struggles, it's going to be a committee coming.
Maybe, but I think Mixon, you kind of know who he is. He's going to be about 800 yards, decent amount of touchdowns, like not much to him. Your best work for him is going to be, a 10+ touchdown season towards the goal line.
Also, I don't know if he gets the carries because they're going to probably throw 50 to 60 times a game again. And if you don't think so, look at their wide receiver room.
Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome.
So why would you not get the ball to them more?
Yeah.
And Joe Mixon's a great pass blocker. And maybe he is there to pass block and run 15 times a game, and that's it.
Yeah.
So who knows? But, yeah, Joe Mixon, Cincinnati, Houston, probably a little bit of a downgrade for him. But he's still very viable.
Probably a little bit high on the rankings. 14 overall for running backs and 26 overall.
And I'll honestly say I'd almost feel better about taking Eckler, like waiting and taking Eckler at his value than taking Mixon at that
75
value.
spots lower, yeah.
Just saying.
And they also, number 14 running back Joe Mixon, number 15 running back Josh Jacobs. I would absolutely
my goodness, I would take Jacobs way over Mixon. I guess they're thinking I guess people are thinking that A.J. Dillon's going to still work, and I just don't think so.
Yeah, and they might just be looking at
I don't think he's efficient
enough as well. I don't know.
Throw it to Jacobs.
Yeah,
it's not like they got a bunch of stud wide receivers. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And Luke Musgrave's a fine tight end, but he's not a stud. So anyway, but Joe Mixon, Cincinnati, Houston. Moving on, another big name, Aaron Jones, going from Green Bay to Minnesota. You could almost start calling Aaron Jones Old Man River by now. I know he's not. He doesn't seem that old, but he's a lot older than people realize.
Yeah.
Let me see. Can you look up a age for him?
I believe he's 29.
29. My goodness. That's almost the death age for running backs because you hit 30 in a running back.
Yeah. He'll turn 30 in
30.
December.
Yeah, he's going to be 30 this year. But Aaron Jones.
Yeah, because we looked that up on the last Dirty Boot podcast, I think, because we were wondering why. what made sense to move from Jones to Jacobs, and it's like a 4-year age difference. So that's a ton in running back years.
Yeah, no doubt. That's 4 years of good stuff. Because I think Aaron Jones is probably his last year. If he has a good season, that's it. But going from Green Bay to Minnesota, honestly, I really feel like it's just a wash for him. I think it's a very similar situation. He's going to get all the passing down work for sure. Is it Ty Johnson that's there behind him? I think Ty Chandler. Sorry, Ty Johnson.
Maybe he gets. Yeah, but, he used to be a running back.
Maybe he gets a little bit, but I mean, I think it's another 60-40, maybe 70-30 Jones to them, unless he gets hurt, which happens often.
Yeah.
So it's still another solid offense.
This is
not
as
good of a quarterback.
I like a decent amount for Jones, which I've always had like a little bit of a crush on him for fantasy for some reason.
He's a great fantasy running back.
He is,
but he's got to be on the field and healthy to do it.
I feel like he's getting a little undervalued.
Probably
for one revenge year, maybe in division. So that's something you don't see often. Not a situation where with Dalvin Cook he had Kirk Cousins and all the healthy weapons. Hawkinson's banged up. Are you going to really trust Darnold or JJ to throw the ball?
That's what I was about to say. They're probably going to stack the box more often than you think and double on Jefferson and see what happens.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think Jones will get some easy touches. And for right now, being ranked 21st for running backs, 71 overall. I mean, as a 7th round pick, I'll take that all day.
There's a ton of value in running backs this year, I feel like.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got to keep moving, Clay, because, man, we're, but Aaron Jones, Green Bay to Minnesota, So good value, lateral move for Jones. I think he'll be heavily involved, just like he always is. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be a good play. Next guy we're going to talk about, DeAndre Swift. Now, this one, I believe, is a downgrade for Swift.
I agree with that.
Because Swift is somebody I was hoping the Saints would go after. Because if you can't tell me that he seems like a similar skill set to Alvin Kamara, I mean, and Kamara's ain't getting any younger, and Kendre Miller can't get off the trainer's table without pulling a hammy, and Jamal Williams ain't getting no younger, and he is no Alvin Kamara, and we need to be finding somebody.
Yeah.
And DeAndre Swift, I thought could have been somebody that we could, but whatever. So they just wanted to put him in Chicago. So he goes from Philadelphia to Chicago because the late, great Caleb Williams is coming there. Anyway, don't even get me started. Sorry, Clay. But Swift, all right, downgrade because he's going from one of the best O-lines in football, one of the best offensive schemes in football, one of the best quarterbacks in football currently, to Chicago, where there is more offensive talent that's going to garner more attention probably than he did because at Philadelphia it was Hurts, and then it was A.J. Brown, and then it was Swift and Devontae Smith, and then Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
We're going to go to Chicago where you got Allen, you got DJ Moore. Allen and DJ Moore, and then you got Rome Odunze, who might garner more touches than Swift. Cole Kmet, which he does not seem like somebody that garners touches, but as efficient as he has been with them, you want to get him 5 to 7 touches a game probably because he is a very deceptively athletic tight end that can do a lot with that. So, and then you got Swift that also has Khalil Herbert behind him, and then Roshan Johnson behind him. So, I mean, that's a lot of mouths to feed. A not great offensive line, which about the best thing that Swift has going for him is he's probably their best pass catcher out of the backfield. It's definitely between him and Roshan, but I'd probably say it's Swift. The
best positives for Swift, I would say, is he got paid a good amount of money from Chicago, so you feel like they are going to use him pretty majorly. I'd say probably at least 70-80% of the running back snaps. And you don't have Jalen Hurts rushing the ball in 15 times for a touchdown.
It's true.
Because a lot of that, I mean, Swift would run down to the 2-yard line, and then every fantasy manager was like, oh my God, not again. Caleb Williams is not going to do that. Whenever they get to the goal line, they're going to give the ball to Swift. So you'll probably see some positive upswing in touchdowns
Yeah.
for Swift, but yards could be on the downside, and just touches all around, honestly.
Yeah. We'll see if he gets more goal line work, or do they get down there and they hand the ball to Herbert?
Yeah,
The thumper.
very, very good. Very, very well.
Just saying, because Swift's not a goal line back, and at least he's the pass catcher, But there's a lot of pass catchers to go around, and I just don't think it's a great situation for Swift. He is somebody that I probably won't draft in any league unless he is way down there.
It would take a fall. Right now, he's ranked 20 for running back, 67 overall. So one spot ahead of Aaron Jones.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
Not a chance. I would take this next guy over him all day, every day. And not at because his value's way better. But this next guy, J.K. Dobbins, Baltimore to the Chargers, coming off another injury. I put it here, the oft-injured Dobbins, because he is. I seen a meme the other day of him on crutches coming into the Chargers, as a joke, But anyway, he is healthy. Like, he's still, I think, technically pup.
He's coming back from an Achilles and an ACL, like, in the past couple of years, right?
Yeah, but he is finally healthy coming in.
Yeah.
A lot of people probably considered him done. But I really think, honestly, with this situation, I think it's a wash for him as fantasy, because I feel like he's always dealt with a crowded running back room. The Chargers' offensive line, running wise, is not terrible at run blocking. And
definitely have a good O-line,
and still a good offensive scheme, a good quarterback. And they don't have as many passing options, so you might have to deal with a stacked box a little bit. But I think Herbert can probably make up for that with what he has. So. And he's probably going to get more goal line touches than he ever did in Baltimore, because I feel like, he's not going to have to deal with that running quarterback. I mean, how many rushing touchdowns does Herbert have over the last – I mean, it ain't many, They handed the ball off to Eckler all the time.
Dobbins is one it's like probably my favorite, like, sleeper of the year.
By far. He will be by far. Because he's listed as number 2 on the depth chart.
Yeah.
But you can't tell me all them years. Now, the next guy's there with him, Gus Edwards.
Yeah.
But you can't tell me all them years Gus Edwards and Dobbins were on the same team.
No.
Dobbins was number 1 every time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to come to the Chargers, and Dobbins is healthy, and Edwards is going to be the number 1. And Edwards has some kind of unknown surgery in the offseason that they don't have to disclose. But he's back. But still, like, you can't tell me Dobbins is going to be the guy.
Talent-wise, Dobbins is absolutely the one every time he's been healthy. And right now he's ranked as the 38th running back overall, 116. That's a 12th round pick. I will take that every day.
So Dobbins is from Baltimore to the Chargers, and then you just heard me allude the next guy, Gus Edwards from Baltimore to the Chargers.
And they're both playing under their OC from Baltimore, Greg Roman.
I really think it had to do with logistics and cost. I think that J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are like, hey, man, look, if we can go to the same place, we can save money on moving expenses. We could Uber together all the way. We
might room together. Who knows?
Yeah, like they might have bought a house together. Who knows? But they went to the same place. And, a lot of people are like, well, it's kind of crowded. No, it ain't crowded. Friggin' ain't nobody else playing but J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think
you have Jim Harbaugh as your coach. Like, that's all he cares about is running.
He'll figure it out. And there ain't no wide receivers there to catch the ball. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And but then you got Gus Edwards. I mean, you could see them both get 20 carries a game. And that's plenty.
Yeah.
As efficient as both of them are, that's plenty.
Yeah.
With this offensive line. So sign me up. I'm not drafting both of them, but I'm going to draft one of them probably in every league.
Honestly, it wouldn't be a terrible idea to get both, though.
I mean, it wouldn't, but you couldn't play both.
No, but give it a couple weeks and figure it out, kind of like a Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara.
And if Dobbins gets hurt, you got Edwards. If Edwards gets hurt, you got Dobbins.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anybody – I think if one of them gets hurt, I think it's going to be like 80-20. One of them gets 80%, and then whoever's behind them gets 20.
Yeah.
I think Josh Kelly I got it right here. That rookie, Kamani Vidal's there, but somebody told me he's looked terrible. And then you got Isaiah Spiller. but they said Jarrett Patterson is the one making the wakes right
from
now.
Buffalo, yeah, former Commander.
Jarrett Patterson is looking good, but they said it's still Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins.
Absolutely.
They said J.K. Dobbins is like blowing people away in camp right now. And,
Greg Roman is the OC, and that was the guy that ran the ball so much in Baltimore that people were begging for a new OC so Lamar could throw it. Jim Harbaugh literally just won a national championship by doing nothing but running the ball. So it's a match made in heaven for two pretty good running backs.
Sign me up for Dobbins and Edwards at the Chargers, and at least you have the threat of Justin Herbert throwing the ball.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, an 11th and 12th round back-to-back of Edwards and Dobbins is not terrible.
And then also, they made some upgrades at tight end in the Chargers. We'll talk about that on the next pod. Yeah. But another big reason I think they're going to run a lot more two tight end sets coming up. And we're going to talk about that at the tight end episode because I'm talking about both those tight ends. But anyway, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, both from Baltimore to the Chargers. I think it's not an upgrade for both of them, but in terms, I think they don't have to fight for as many touches and as many goal line opportunities. It's an upgrade. As far as offensive schemes and quarterbacks, I think it's a wash.
Yeah.
So, like both of those guys. And then this next guy, Devin Singletary, doing it again, man. Going from the starter in Houston came out of nowhere and defeated Dameon Pierce for that starting job.
I forgot. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Whenever we mentioned Pierce earlier, I was like, who was even the running back?
To the Giants. Boy, the Giants must have high praise if they're replacing Saquon with Devin Singletary. Get out of here, man. But Devin Singletary going to the Giants. Definitely a lot less competition there than there was in Houston. But a decline in quarterback play, I think we can both agree. Maybe a wash as far as offensive scheme because we know that Brian Daboll is a fairly talented offensive coordinator, and he is going to be calling the plays this year. So I can't say that it's not I can't say it's a decline in offensive scheme, but it's definitely a downgrade in offensive line. Definitely. So because they're one of the worst in the NFL. And but Brian Daboll called the plays. I think it's going to help. He has hardly any competition, and I will say, Daniel Jones will throw the ball to his running back because we've seen that with Saquon. And Singletary's a good pass catcher. Now the word is the rookie they drafted. Let me pull him up. Tyrone Tracy is a good pass catcher, and he is making weight. Like he is making a name for himself. Now the RB2 currently, Eric Gray, has looked terrible from what I've heard. A couple people say the beat writers are saying. So they're thinking Tracy is going to supplant him as the RB2, and they think Tracy could end up being more of a third down running back, spelling Singletary from time to time. So, but either way, Singletary going from Houston to the Giants, a big change for him, a big upgrade for him fantasy-wise, I think. Is it an upgrade for the Giants? Not really. I mean, they're going to focus all their offensive power on Malik Neighbors. But I think big upgrade for Singletary. I think he's going to be highly undervalued as a running back. And I think my man Clay has got his ADP up probably by now.
Yeah, he's a player I really can't get my finger on of how I feel. I mean, obviously the volume should be there. Number 33 overall running back, so not even in the top 32. I think
he's a solid flex or your first bench running back because he could be somebody that has so much. Like they can only get the ball to Neighbors so many times.
Yeah.
And then he's going to have some kind of value and like volume in the offense.
Yeah.
You don't bring him in for no reason.
I mean, he's the 100th overall player. I mean, this little range of 96 to 103 is very interesting with running backs. Jalen Warren, Javonte Williams, Spears, Pollard, Eckler, Singletary, Mostert, Zeke.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of good names. And then Dobbins and Edwards. Running back is deep this year. It really is.
And I'll be honest, all those names, other than maybe Javonte Williams, you were talking about Javonte, not Jamal, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe other than Javonte, I probably like Singletary because of the no competition and the volume he should get. I think I like his opportunities a lot better. Not as good of an offense. He probably won't have as many touchdowns. But if he's got 6 catches a game and 15 rushes for 80 yards and, 6 catches for 60.
Yeah, it ain't going to be
that's
a pretty
RB2
year.
all day.
It ain't going to be a pretty year, but if he stays healthy, if he continues to get the touches that you feel like he's just going to have to get, he could sneak into a top 20, 25 running back this year and be a very fine player on your team.
Easy. So that's Devin Singletary going from Houston to New York, the Giants, that is. And then this next guy, really didn't see this move coming, but after they got rid of Mixon, I understand. But Zach Moss going from Indianapolis to Cincinnati, he was definitely a surprise standout last year because of the whole Jonathan Taylor debacle in Indianapolis. Zach Moss just comes out of nowhere and is like an RB1 for like the whole time.
Yeah, he was awesome.
And honestly, he comes into a better offensive scheme, a better quarterback, probably an improving offensive line. I don't think you could say a better offensive line because the Colts offensive line is now rated as one of the best.
Yeah.
But better offensive line than it was. And, with Jonathan Taylor coming back in the picture, you have to say it's definitely a big upgrade for Zach Moss. Because he wasn't going to play in Indianapolis.
No.
So definitely less competition than he had. And then now you got Chase Brown, the rookie that backed up Mixon last year in his second year. They're saying looks really good coming out of camp. Mm-hmm. Rumors are that he has a leg up on the starting job over Zach Moss currently just because of his experience. But a lot of people are thinking it's going to be a 1A, 1B, see who ends up as more productive. And then that person could end up being the workhorse because they like a workhorse in Cincinnati. But also, I've heard a lot of negatives about Chase Brown's pass blocking. And Lord knows they need that for Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. So they're saying that they think Chase Brown could be the first, second down back, and then Zach Moss is going to be the third down back pass blocker and check down guy. So we'll see how it plays out. Definitely interesting. I think a lot of people are assuming Zach Moss is the guy going in right to start, and that's probably how he's getting drafted. So I can't really endorse drafting him, depending on where you tell me here in just a second, Clay. But I do think it's a positive for Zach Moss, and maybe a positive for this offense because let's be honest, Joe Mixon had slowed down a little bit. So between getting fresh blood in Zach Moss and fresh legs and Chase Brown in there, I think it could be positive if Brown could be a serviceable pass blocker and they settle on one of them. I think it'll be huge, but I really feel like it's going to be a committee.
Zach Moss is 26 for running backs, 76 overall. So right around the David Montgomery, Brian Robinson, Najee Harris range.
I like that. I mean, because you're not drafting him to be an RB1 for sure.
Yeah.
But he has that upside if he is the lone RB in that offense.
There's some risk to him in the similar way that there is with Robinson and Najee. But I think you do feel a little bit safer with him.
Zach Moss, obviously, could lose his job, could keep it, could be the RB1. I mean, who knows? Definitely somebody. It's an interesting position because somebody's got to replace Mixon. There's a lot of touches and a lot of catches out of that backfield in a really good offense. So Zach Moss going from Indianapolis, Cincinnati, pretty big move. So we'll see between him and Chase Brown who emerges, but whoever does, I think could be very solid this year.
Yeah,
and then last but certainly not least, listed as the starter, which I was surprised to see. Because I told my partner at work I would intro with this. But in Dallas, they got to be singing Reunited and it feels so good. Zeke is back from New England to Dallas. I don't know if this is good or not for fantasy because I feel like it just muddies the waters with Rico Dowdle, and who had looked fairly serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all, I'm not a singer. I run audio for my church, by the way, not sing. So
Same here.
Don't let that deter you. Don't let that deter you from coming to my church. So, but yeah, like we got Zeke, Rico Dowdle, and then they bring in Rolls-Royce Freeman. Okay. Rolls-Royce Freeman comes in, and I hear he is making like turning heads at camp. So who knows what's going to happen in this Dallas backfield? But I feel like it's a downgrade for Zeke going from New England to Dallas, because at least he had somewhat of a defined role in New England. And I mean, he might have the same role in Dallas, but you got Dowdle, who's looked good. You got Royce Freeman looking good, and still got plenty of tread on the tires. So we could be looking at a three-way committee in Dallas. You know, I got Rico Dowdle in my dynasty league, and I'm like, I thought I was looking good, and then I'm like, man, you know. So
and there's also Deuce Vaughn that you kind of have to mention.
I feel like he's that Sproles, type.
Yeah.
Get some, get
that
returns
could
absolutely
be someone that gets a touch here and there and makes a big play.
So
that's four
I really
running
don't know what
backs.
to think. Yeah, I mean, I think for Zeke, I think it's a wash as far as his situation. I think it only downgrades the fantasy impact in Dallas as far as the backfield, because I think it just muddies the waters.
Yeah, it's four running backs in a backfield that is not going to get a lot of touches because they
did not produce very well last year.
No, they're pass heavy.
Honestly. Yeah. So, but anyway, Zeke from New England to Dallas. So there you go. That's pretty much all the relevant big moves at running backs that I could come up with, guys. I mean, obviously there's some other minor stuff that, backups, but there were so many big moves and so many we had to talk about. I couldn't cover anything. I mean, because look how long it's already taken, guys. Yeah. I told you we're going to shorten this episode, and look at us. We're way long already.
About an hour and a half, I think. But
oh, my goodness. Don't even tell me that. But you can at least cut out 15 minutes of that technical difficulties. But anyway, that's going to round out, guys, for this episode. Next episode, we're going to come back at y'all and talk about wide receivers and tight ends. It should be a much shorter pod. But we appreciate everybody out there listening. It's good to be back. Always go find us, like, subscribe, send us some comments, give us some feedback, guys. We appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate our sponsors. It's good to be back, and we'll catch y'all later. Y'all keep chasing that trophy.
This ain't how it's supposed to be. It should be just you and me.